Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to HOTFIX. Today, we're going to talk about BlizzCon 2013, because we're all Americanized, Mr. Kirioth, or 2013 if you're from the UK. So, quite a lot of things got announced, and I guess what we're going to do, we're going to go over everything they kind of announced, you know, in terms of the games. So, obviously, stuff to do with Warcraft, to do with Diablo, to do with Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone, and even the film, or the movie. And then we'll kind of discuss if it was a failure or a success for Blizzard.
Film, son. Film. Movie?
Film.
No. Film. Film. Well, the film, son.
Good place to start,
that is confirmed for release in 2015. And it'll be about Lothar, and Durotan. And my knowledge of Warcraft lore is not up to scratch. So I'm not entirely sure who either of those people are. But it's men and orcs, that's the important thing. Massive war between man and orc. And apparently the director said he wants to make you feel sorry for both the men and the orcs, so that it's not just a one-dimensional kill fest. Which is a shame, because I think that'd be quite good.
Just a one-dimensional kill fest. Well, I think, to be honest, with like the Warcraft film, it's what is it? Is it CGI animated, or is it just a live action?
Isn't it? I think it's live action with CGI stuff. I guess.
Okay, that you see, I don't know about that. You see, I think if they went like the Pixar route and just had a completely animated, you know, I mean, for God's sake, Blizzard makes some of the best bloody game cinematics I've ever
just
seen.
Make it themselves.
Yeah, I mean, if that was like a feature-length cinematic, I'm sure that'd do quite well. I'm not too hot on the old idea of actually getting actors in. That sounds a bit dodgy. Oh dear, I don't know what I think about that.
That also runs the risk that none of the characters will look like the characters they're meant to, because let's face it, all of the stuff that you typically see from Blizzard is like highly stylized, I think is the phrase, isn't it? So it doesn't actually look anything like people, as it were. People are not that shape, especially if you base them off like the human models in World of Warcraft. You have to pad out their arms and chest and make them look dead goofy and stupid.
Here's the thing: do you think why even bother making a film? I don't even understand. Like what's the thing with that?
Money?
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
It's very risky.
I don't know how popular it would be, like just basically out in the wild, as it were, because it is a film based on a game.
Yeah,
it might be like a big budget A-list celebrity type film star film, but it's still like, would you if you weren't someone who played World of Warcraft or any of the Blizzard games, would you like call up your mates and go, do you want to go and see? Do you want to go see the Warcraft film?
Well, there's an interesting thing. Would you actually go and see a Warcraft film? This is another thing. Like, if I rang my mates up and said, "Hello, do you want to come and see a Warcraft film?" They'd be like, "What are you on?" No, I'd be like, "Well, you know." So there is that thing. Although I do think,
got real people and everything is not a good way to advertise a film, is it?
No, I think.
Don't know.
I don't know. I really don't know about that film. I'll have to. I'm not. I don't. I'm very like indecisive when it comes to that. This is not something I want to go and see. It's not necessarily something I think should even really exist. That's Anyway, next point, Mr. Kirioth.
Weird.
It is weird.
Well, the one of the other things, this is obviously far more important, is Warlords of Draenor. I want to say Draenor.
Oh yeah.
Sounds better.
Okay. So I'll tell you about this. The very first character I made on World of Warcraft back in like 2005, well, like the very start. I think it was even 2004 maybe. Yeah, it was 2004. I'm looking at the dates. It's 9 years old. It was 2004. At the end of 2004, I think it was. It was a hunter, and it was on a server called, wait for it, Draenor. At least that's what I thought it was called until this BlizzCon, where I was cruelly informed by Chris Metzen that it's actually Draenor. So the E is silent, Draenor. But I'd always referred to it as Draenor, so like Draenor.
Draenor sounds way better.
Sounds better, yeah. But
Draenor just sounds a bit lame. Draenor sounds solid.
So what do we know about it, Mr. Kirioth? What do we know?
Well, Warlords of Draenor. Let's start something. It means you're going back some to Draenor before it becomes Outland.
Yeah.
So it's time travel. Old Garrosh, he's done stuff people don't like. He's got to face justice, but he's like, no, I'll go back in time. So he goes back in time to stop the orcs drinking the blood of Manaroth. And it sounds like a mental plot, but
if I believe, Manaroth is the Pit Lord. Garrosh kills. Not Garrosh, Hellscream kills.
Yeah.
Destroys him. Grom. They're both called Hellscream. Garrosh and Grom
So
Hellscream.
that's-
Oh yeah. That was. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, I made a video over the weekend which discusses some of the features and stuff that Warlords of Draenor has, and I did use that cinematic. That's why I could remember it. But it's such a good cinematic where he gets Gorehound and he just rams it into his chest and he goes. Oh!
It's quality. I love that.
And he dies. It is good. It's really good. But like Warcraft 3, the whole like the RTS storyline for single player for the campaign is the best I've ever played in Warcraft 3. Warcraft 1 and 2 is like they're old, but Warcraft 3, I mean, you could sit down and play that and play through Frozen Throne as well, and the lore is absolutely amazing. And then you get World of Warcraft and go and play up to Wrath of the Lich King and kill Arthas. Absolutely, that storyline. Some people might say, okay, it's generic and whatever, but that is a really good storyline.
Yeah.
I think for me, after that, World of Warcraft kind of went to shit. Like, I mean, me and you, we played. Okay, so we played the original. We played like vanilla or whatever, but that just carried on from the lore of the RTS games. Although it was kind of a there wasn't like it wasn't like as powerful as the Arthas arc when that finished in Wrath. Then you got Outland, which is again that's from the game. That's from Frozen Throne, because you play with Illidan and all that shit, and you go around Outland and blah 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 blah, Burning Legion, blah 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 blah. Then you get to Wrath. And then you kill Arthas, who's like a big badass guy, and that's fantastic. Then Cataclysm comes out. Now, we played Cataclysm for a couple of weeks, and then we just stopped playing Cataclysm.
Yeah.
But I don't really care about that, because a lot of that was down to some of the actual game design changes they made, not the storyline. But what was the storyline, Mr. Kirioth, in Cataclysm?
Well, that was a big problem I had, because in Wrath, it was like, suddenly you are assaulting Arthas's massive fortress. You're going in, you've got these really good lore-based instances and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Cataclysm, it was like, oh shit, we've killed off our main villain. What do we do now?
Yeah.
And then suddenly, it was just like Deathwing.
I agree.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
Agree,
Deathwing would have been, I think, a good villain, like a good main boss, a good focal point for the expansion, if there had been more to do with him in the lead up. But because Arthas has been there like from day one, from before WoW, him coming back at some point was like, it was kind of on the cards. It was something that was mentioned through all of the games. And then Cataclysm, it was just like, oh, by the way, there's this giant dragon and he's made of fire and lava and he's going to destroy the world. Off you go. Yeah. And you're like, well, hang on a minute. We had an entire expansion based entirely on finding Arthas, a key figure in the lore. And I know Deathwing
I used the term generic,
didn't
I?
But yeah,
generic
it's
sums
just,
it up, don't it?
Yeah,
it was shit. Like I agree. I think it was very like this. We've just got a big bad guy, so we've all got to kill the big bad guy. It's okay. Then Mr. Pandaria comes out. I think Cataclysm did quite a lot of damage to WoW. Mr. Pandaria, I've heard good things about that. I've not played it myself personally, but I've heard good things about it. So I am tempted to go and check it out. But the storyline as such apparently got pretty good towards the end with Garrosh, the whole like he's taken the Horde on like this massive world conquest to just kill everybody, which is what you want. But he ends up losing, and then he gets arrested and he's to be taken on trial, which is where Warlords of Draenor kicks off, where he basically breaks out of the wherever he's been held for trial, and using typical WoW craziness goes back in time with current day technology, right?
Yeah.
To Draenor before the Horde were corrupted, to say to the Horde, listen up, I'm the fucking boss. So I've got all this fancy equipment. We're going to create something called the Iron Horde, and it's going to be what the Horde should be, just a big killing machine. And that's pretty good. But for me,
that sounds solid. It
does sound solid. But for me, it's like it's a really good point in Warcraft lore, because the lore was really good for the RTS games, especially with Warcraft 3. Because that obviously starts off with the whole poisoning of the orcs and whatnot. Well, it actually happened before that, because I think that was in Warcraft 1, doesn't it? Because whenever they come through the portal, it's Warcraft 1 when they come through the portal. But going back to that period is very good, because that's the best lore. And if you think about this in a clever way, this allows them to kind of reset everything they've done, because another WoW expansion comes out. You could be in a situation where all the other shit, Cataclysm, all the expansions for WoW don't mean anything anymore, because the timeline's been reset. It's like a Star Trek moment, like a crazy, oh god, we've reset, the Vulcan's dead, there's only Spock left, so it's fucking GG, and then we can just start again. It's kind of like that, and I think that's quite a good move, because I think WoW was a little bit crappy. Like, it was in a point where people didn't care about it. But now, before I let you jump in, Mr. Kirioth, now I actually want to go out and get Warlords of Draenor because I know it's going to be in a period of lore, well, a period of time where, to me, that appeals quite well, and I actually want to see what they do with the story.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me, I think, because I really enjoyed the storyline in Wrath. The story in Cataclysm felt really sudden and forced, and it was just like, we need to... It almost felt like an excuse to remodel the starting areas.
Yeah.
That's almost what it felt like to me. It was like, well, this is outdated and crap, we need something about it. Deathwing. And it's like, well, okay, fine, but it wasn't really explained that well. Pandaria, I didn't experience any of it, but I mean, Warlords of Draenor just sounds...
Draenor?
Draenor. I'm going to keep saying Draenor, it sounds better. It just makes it... It brings back that kind of old style of the story, and resetting it as well, actually. I think you're right. I think it's going to kind of revitalise World of Warcraft, because they can go anywhere from the reset. I mean, they can go anywhere by the end of the expansion. And
well, people say WoW it's losing subscribers. Okay, it's down to 7.7 million. It's not 12 million of its the high days in 2010. But I mean, come on, 7.7 million is a lot of people, and I think it'll probably it'll probably approach 9 million, I reckon, and maybe even do a little bit more when this expansion comes out. But in terms of like features for this expansion, you've got garrisons, which is player housing, which is about time in WoW. But it's actually like a fort, a garrison, like, so you can like have all kinds of crazy buildings or whatever. Could be good for a guild. You can increase your level to level 100, which I think usually in WoW they only go up in 5 level increments, but this is a 10 level jump. You get this is the most interesting thing, really. You get a free level 90 character when you buy the expansion, which I think now this. I look back at myself and son, get in the webcam. That's good. I talk to my if I talk to my previous self, and in the days when I was playing EverQuest and even playing WoW and stuff like that, the thought of being given a level 90 character is so disgusting on about every different level. It makes me sick. But now, I'm like, I'm cool with that because I'm not in a situation to go out. Like, if I wanted to experience this expansion, there is no way on earth I would play through Mists of Pandaria and even the end of Cataclysm with my character to get it up to a level to start that content. I just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't do it. And so I wouldn't play the game. But because they're saying, oh, you know what, we'll give you a character. Now I'm like, ooh, this is interesting to me. Now, like, to me, I can accept that and I can do it. Don't worry about your webcam. I'll fix you when you talk. But
well, I agree with that because I think I previously would have been the same. I'd have thought, well, if I don't have to work for it, what's the point? But actually, I think it kind of makes sense with the way things are going with gaming in general. It feels like there are not a lot of games where people have the time, essentially, anymore to just sit down and smash a character from like 1 to 100. I mean, that's a huge amount of playtime. And if you're bringing out an expansion where the entire point is the
and cost as well, because if I said to you, Mr. Kirioth, you've got to buy every WoW expansion, you're like, Christ, where with this, I'm guessing you could just buy... Well, I'm guessing you can just buy the base game, I suppose, and then the expansion, because you've got a level 90.
And also, the other thing as well is it kind of makes sense. If they're doing a history reset, if you're going to Draenor, then, frankly, whatever else happens is kind of irrelevant up to then. I mean, it'd be nice to know that Garrosh has, lost his shit and been arrested and has gone back in time. But that's going to be explained at the start of the expansion. You're not going to need to play through the others to get to that point, because it's going to be like, this is what you did, this is why you're here. And then the expansion will begin. So
yeah, I get what you're saying. So it's like irrelevant, isn't it? The history.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, especially the old world. If you're going through like Kalimdor and all that lot, and then eventually end up on Draenor, where everything that happened before is at risk of just being wiped out anyway. It kind of makes sense to me that it would kind of be like almost like a new character. Like I know it's a high level, but you're kind of starting a completely separate journey by going over there, because everything that's happened before is kind of in flux.
Well, so, I know, but I think the issue is though you're just going to have the hardliners who say this is disgraceful, this is typical WoW. Well, they're not really the hardliners. Hardliners will say, no, we don't want this. This is terrible. If you want to level a character, then you've got to do it. Then you've got the casuals, which you could probably ban me into now and say, well, it's quite good for them because then they can experience it and that's fine. But then you get the haters and they're like, it's typical WoW. They're just giving you a character. So there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. But I do think, just to sum it up, I think it's a fairly it's a clever business thing to do because it means they're going to sell more of the expansion, and that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
They need to get more people back into WoW. Then it's up to them to keep people captured. So I think we'll move on to the next thing, which I think is Diablo, Mr. Kirioth.
Yes, Reaper of Souls,
Good Lord.
which admittedly is a solid name for an expansion.
I shall reap your souls.
That actually, I have to admit, I'm kind of looking forward to Reaper of Souls. I didn't think I would, but there is so many like mental things that are being added in. When you got the new class, but that kind of, I'm not too fussed about the new class, to be honest with you. But it's the stuff they're actually doing with the game itself. Like the class is kind of almost irrelevant, I guess. There's like adventure mode now. So, well, there will be adventure mode when it's released, obviously. So you can go wherever you like and kill whatever you want. So you can go to any point of the game's waypoints.
So,
and you can just jump around
so
the
all
maps.
the waypoints are linked together.
Yeah, so you can go wherever you want. Just
makes
do whatever
sense.
you like. Which I quite like that. I think that would, especially for those who still play the game obsessively and farm a lot, there are certain points that, are better for farming than others. So being able to jump from one point to another, I quite like that as an idea. There's also going to be almost like a quest system for that as well. So you've got adventure mode where you can just jump around, but there will be another mode similar to that where you can go to different places to complete bounties and quests and stuff.
Right.
So there'll still be a guiding point to that. So you don't have to just jump around like a maniac. There is actually a reason to do it if you need a reason to do it and you're not just farming. They've added, like, there's going to be new mobs. There's going to be a mob that sounds mental that has an interdimensional portal on his back. Which is like, what the hell is that? And, like, mobs come out of it.
On his back?
And, yeah. They come out of his back. They, like, jump out of his spine. But then when you kill him, you can go through the portal.
Doctor about that. What the hell?
You can go through the portal and enter this other dimension. Which is like, what the hell is that? There's like another one that spawns mobs, and the more mobs it spawns, the stronger it gets, and the more mobs it spawns. So if you don't kill it quick, you're just going to be in like, just a load of crap. You can't get anywhere, because there's a million bees and stuff flying at you. And the thing that actually I'm most looking forward to is Nephilim Rifts.
Nephilim.
Nephilim Rifts. It sounds hardcore already. But basically, you go into the rift, and it breaks all the rules that they've got. So you know how in every act you go to, there's specific enemies for that area, and there's like a certain number and a certain type. No, if you go into a Nephilim Rift, you're facing just hordes of enemies from anywhere and everywhere. And any combination of, like, you could have, like, the mental combination of, like, Molten and teleporting and all that.
Yeah.
Like, any combination of powers, any combination of monsters and bosses when you go through a rift. So you could go through and find yourself
that's a
on,
very
like, the
simple.
receiving end.
That's a simple thing, no, really. That must be simple for them to do. And do you think a lot of this stuff? Because if I'm honest, I haven't really been following Reaper of Souls because I'm not that interested into it. But from what you just said, it does sound kind of funky. But do you think this is stuff that should have been in the game anyway? I mean, they're getting rid of the auction house, ain't they? That's the big news as well. Yeah.
It kind of feels like this is stuff they're adding in. I guess it feels like almost just for fun, because it's not going to. It's going to add something to the game in that you can take on these ridiculous challenges. Also, Nephilim Rifts, I've just realised, is worth pointing out as well. Not only does it break the rules for the mobs, it also breaks them for you. So you could be given buffs or debuffs when you go through. So you could end up with a buff where every hit fires chain lightning. Or you could go in and find yourself got no mana or something. It just depends on what happens when you go through. It sounds like they're trying to make the game more, give it more longevity through the adventure mode and having bounties and quests and stuff. But with the Nephilim Rifts, it just sounds like they're just trying to mess about and have fun. Because I would do that. I'd quite happily, if you said to me, do you want a game of Diablo? I'd be like, let's go into a Nephilim Rift, because it would sound to me more fun for like a quick bash or something.
It'd give you something to do, wouldn't it? Because like, remember we did play it a couple of months back, and we were just like endlessly going through the same zones, and it was boring, wasn't it? It was interesting, kind of, for I don't know, a couple of hours, but then once we kind of realised that, hang on a minute, we're just going through the same thing over and over again, and you learn little tricks. It's like it's a bit boring. So spicing it up like that is probably a good thing. All right, so that's what's gone on with Diablo. So I think the next thing is we'll go on to Hearthstone, because there isn't really that much to talk about. That hasn't been kind of known before, but
Yeah,
Let's go into
I
that.
mean, the thing that was interesting to me with Hearthstone is the announcement that they were going to be releasing it on Android and iOS as well, which actually just makes perfect sense. I'm kind
Well,
of I don't know why they
I've got
didn't.
this thing, AI. I've got this thing. So, like,
Yeah,
that would be really, really, really good, actually, on that. I mean, I do think,
yeah.
actually, it would translate pretty fucking well to a mobile platform.
Well, I mean, when you actually look at how you control it on the PC, what do? You
Yeah,
just
just drag and
click
drop.
and then you just drag and drop.
What?
I mean,
Yeah.
that's perfectly suited for touch devices. And I'll be honest with you, I'd much rather be playing like Hearthstone on the train than sitting there and playing, I don't know, Clash
Well,
of Clans or something. I don't know,
yeah.
something that's
You know what, though? Yeah, you are totally right, because I've been doing a lot of coverage of iPhone games, and I've played a game called Infinity Blade 3 that actually feels like a proper game you could play. A game called Sorcery 2 feels like a proper game you could play. And also Sid Meier's Pacific Ace pilot thing, again, feels like a proper game you could play. But that's 3 games. I've tried, like, I am not even exaggerating here, like 20 odd games plus. I was downloading all the all the newly released games on the Apple Store. Every single one is terrible. There's one, tiny big Death Star or something like that, tiny Death Star. And what you do is you build like a Death Star, but you build a different level. So like you can have like a canteen level, right? But you need workers for the canteen level, so you need to build like a resident level, right? And then like stormtroopers will arrive, and you can send them to go to live in the thing and then work in the cafe or whatever, and all that shit. And it's kind of funny. And I thought this is pretty good. And then about 5 minutes into the game, it goes, oh, by the way, if you'd like to speed up construction of level 3, pay us $10 or something. I'm like, what the fuck? So I just uninstalled it. But this is going off the point. But I do think Hearthstone could be a really, really good mobile game, like a proper mobile game.
That's the thing, isn't it? The majority of mobile games are that kind of thing where it's
They're not
you
even
can do
games,
this,
they're
it
shit.
takes time, and you've got to pay to do it quicker. Or it's stuff like what is it, Candy Crush?
Oh, the
Stuff like
gem
that,
thing. Yeah.
where you're just swiping and that's all you're doing. You're just matching stuff together. And okay, it might. This is my criteria for that kind of game. It might be fine for playing for 5 minutes while you're on the bog, but you're not going to sit there for 2 hours on a long journey and do it, are you? You're just not.
Well, yeah, this is
There's
the thing.
nothing there to entertain you.
Isn't games
Whereas,
like Hearthstone are more like a game that you would play like on a Game Boy 3D whatever, or a PlayStation Vita,
Yeah.
something like that. So I think,
and it's something to keep you occupied as well. In that it's strategic and there's a deck building element and there's actually quite a lot you can do with the game without playing the
Yeah.
game. You can experiment with different decks and different cards and things, and it does make perfect sense to have them on there. And I'm kind of looking forward to it because I have no good games on my Nexus 7, and I would have Hearthstone on that
In an
like
instant,
a
yeah.
flash, just straight away. I'd just
Yeah.
go straight for it.
well, I think like the other stuff with Hearthstone, they announced some stuff about the rank system and about you can like customize your decks and stuff like that, like the backs of the cards, so they don't all look the same. But the most interesting thing for me was the tournament they did. So they did an Innkeepers Invitational where they just invited some like celebrities. They're not okay. People like Crip and Trump are pretty good at Hearthstone. You can't deny that. But they're like internet celebrities more than anything, like big streamers, and Artosis and like Husky and Day9, people like that who were known around Blizzard. Artosis ended up winning the tournament, but what it was you had 3 constructed decks, so you could build your deck however you wanted, but you had 3 chances, yeah? So let's say you had a rogue, a warrior, and a priest, yeah? So they went in, and it was single elimination, I think. So they played each other, and if you lost, you lost, but you got 3 chances. So you had to beat the other person 3 times, and then they've lost, sort of thing. But you could only use one deck once, so if you lost with that deck, you couldn't use it again. And you know what? It was pretty fucking interesting to watch. It had like 100,000 viewers on Twitch, and I sat there watching the final. And I think it was cast by Total Biscuit, and I think it's Kevin Knock, the old guy from I think he's from IGN. He works for Blizzard now. But it was really quite interesting because not a lot really goes on. Right, it does it in Hearthstone. It's just a couple of cards moving, but the way they did it was quite well. Like you could see the board, and then you could see their faces, and you could see like them making decisions like, what should I do? And then you got the commentators giving you opinion on it, and I thought it was really good. And I think this is probably going to be something which is going to be quite fairly decent in the esports scene, provided it's balanced. Although to be honest, it looked quite balanced to me. To a point. I mean, I know okay, priests are probably a bit OP and the rest of it, but I don't know. I think that was the best thing for Hearthstone. But I think, Mr. Kirioth, we should move on to Heroes of the Storm.
I think for me, I actually felt like Heroes of the Storm was the biggest announcement.
I
Just
think it
because
was. I think it was. Yeah.
there's been a lot of stuff kind of floating around about it, and various hints that it was Blizzard All Stars, and what kind of game would it be? Would it just be something like Dota? Would it be League of Legends but reskin? That
Yeah.
kind of speculation. Are Blizzard actually going to do something new with it, or are they just going to try and chip into the mobile market? And actually, when it was properly revealed, it was really interesting because it just doesn't feel like the current big names in MOBAs. I mean, really, we've got League of Legends and Dota 2.
Well, they don't even call it a MOBA, do they? It's a hero
No,
brawler.
it's
Isn't
hero
it,
brawler, yeah. Because but which I think actually is kind of fair enough because the emphasis
Kind of
is
makes
not
more sense
on-
though, doesn't it? If you think about it.
Yeah, I've never really understood the term the online battle arena.
Couldn't
part,
that apply to
because it's
anything? Couldn't that apply to like Counter Strike?
Yeah,
Surely that's
it seems like a really
Yeah.
generic. In fact, actually, I'd have thought that term, battle arena, actually says more about Heroes of the Storm than it does about like League of Legends, because League of Legends is you've got the farming
I don't know.
aspect,
You
you've got
still
the
having a
jungling
battle
aspects.
though. It's very vague. MOBA is though. Very vague.
Yeah, but I mean, it
Hero
looks
Brawler
really
makes more
interesting
sense.
because they've really taken it that like the idea of this 5v5 teams on in this arena,
Yeah.
and it looked to me like a cross between an RTS, an MMO, and a MOBA, because you had that picking your team to make sure you've got every base covered. Like you've got someone who's tanky, someone who can do some heals. You've got damage, maybe a siege hero. That's the other thing that was interesting. Dedicated siege heroes like the Witch Doctor, which are there for destroying enemy fortifications and minion waves. I really like that idea. You don't really see that as such in other MOBAs, but then again, it's just I don't know. It looks really interesting. It's taken all the kind of
Yeah. So what are the differences?
fidgety-
Like, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kirioth knows a lot about this because he made an amazing video, which is on the channel, comparing League of Legends to Heroes. So
Yeah.
just give us a recap of that. I mean, you've got all the info,
Well,
man.
the basic thing is there's no last hitting. So when you're taking down minion waves, you just want to melt them as quickly as
Last
possible.
hitting just
There's no
pisses me
benefit
off
to last
anyway.
hit. Exactly.
Ugh.
It just gets on my nerves. Actually, there's no gold either. So last hitting is pointless anyway because
so no
you don't get any
items?
reward for it. So there's no items, there's no shop, there's no gold. The experience that you earn is earned across the entire team. So if you've got one guy who goes out and gets a pentakill, the entire team shares the experience for every
So
kill.
how do you change your character then if there's no equipment to buy?
Well, the characters have all got different talents. Like you start out with
WoW.
your base skills.
Yeah.
And then as you level up, every few levels, you can pick a new skill. So it's actually got like a full talent tree in there, and you can customize the talents. What talents you pick dictate how your character plays. So one of the examples that they were talking about in one of the dev diaries was Arthas can either summon. I think it's Syndra, isn't it? Is it Syndra? No.
Syndra Ghost or something like that. Is it Syndra Ghost?
Yeah,
Syndra Ghost. The big
the big
frost dragon
skeletal
thing.
frost dragon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
You can either summon that, which does a big AOE damage against heroes or minions, or you can pick like an army of ghouls that takes down fortifications. So you've got two ultimate abilities to choose from.
That's pretty interesting. So what he's saying is the heroes are not locked in. Like if I pick Severe or something in League of Legends, I am an
Yeah.
AD carry. I am not going to turn into a
Yeah.
support. But if I pick the Lich King or whatever, I can be like a single target assassin, or I can be a lane pusher.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
And
pretty
it's-
interesting. Yeah.
I really like that aspect of it, and it's there's stuff
Make
like
it
they
more-
mentioned
yeah,
Uther
yeah.
as well. Like Uther
Paladin.
can just be he can just be a healer.
Yeah.
If you want, he can be a dedicated healer. All he does is heal. And they've already got a running joke at Blizzard that Uther always walks away because he's impossible to kill because he's got so many heals.
Like
He doesn't do
bubbling
much damage if
himself
you
and
take.
running off.
Yeah, if you don't take, he doesn't do much damage if you build him that way. But he can always support the team and he can always
Yeah.
escape. But if you want to, you can also make him damage. So you could either go, a healer, or you could walk in and smash someone in the face with your giant hammer and wreck them. It depends entirely on what the team composition is, how you want to play it, what you want to do. I mean, there's loads of different strategies and loads of different maps as well. Like
I think like
if
what
you go
I
on League of
remember-
Legends,
Yeah, no, you are right though. I remember there's like an instance as well, isn't there, in one of the maps where there's like
Yeah.
a mine, and you've got like a quest, haven't you, on the map? It isn't like just kill the Nexus. I mean, it is just
Yeah,
kill their
yeah.
base, but it's like you get. Were they collecting
But the way
skulls
you-
at one point, wasn't they, to summon
Yeah.
like a massive undead siege thing, which would just wreck the base or something mental?
That's the thing. It's like the basis of the game is like the same as Dota 2 and League of Legends. You're basically trying to push to destroy the enemy base, but
Yeah.
instead of there just being the one map that you always play on, which is the same for most MOBAs really, there's going to be loads of different maps. There's like it's not just your traditional here are 3 lanes, here are some towers, there's the base, off you go. Instead, you've got crazy stuff. There's a map where there's a pirate, a ghost pirate with a ghost pirate ship.
Ghost
And if you
pirate,
collect
yarr!
if you collect bounty and gold, he'll fight for your team and use his ghost ship to fire cannons at the enemy fortifications. On one of the maps they played on, actually at BlizzCon, you can go down. Like as you said, you go down this mine, and you collect skulls, and the skulls go towards building a grave golem.
Yeah, that's
And the
what I
grave
said. Yeah,
golem's
he's like a big
massive
siege
unit.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
more skulls you create, like the more skulls you collect, the bigger the golem is. So if like the red team decides to push down blue team's towers whilst blue team is in the mine, getting the skulls and destroying the boss that's in there, because there's a boss as well, because it's like a mini instance.
But like Baron
Then-
Nashor.
Yeah, except not
Shit.
Well, you actually got to work to
Not
get through.
shit,
Yeah,
yeah.
not terrible. Like their grave golem will be massively better than the one that spawns with the team. So you could have one that walks up to the towers, gets one hit, and dies. But then the other teams could be massive because they've gathered like 80 skulls. And
So you
it'll
kind
just
of have to
plough
balance
through
this. Yeah.
fortifications.
You can't just.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think the major thing for me, the biggest difference I noticed was there was just combat straight away between the heroes.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't seem
Yeah.
like the game started and that was it. They were just fighting each other, and it looked like the fights were not stupidly fast like in LoL. You can just get obliterated by somebody instantly.
Yeah.
And like you said, with the experience being shared, it doesn't mean that you're going to have somebody who can do that and just obliterate somebody instantly. Which is
I think
good.
that's the most. I think that's the most interesting part of it for me because
Yeah.
not only is the experience shared, but if you die, you still get experience. So like, if you die at the start of a fight, but your team still somehow wipes out the enemy team, you will still get the experience for the kills. So when you come back in, you're not behind. The entire team on both sides,
That's
they level
nice
in
as well.
lockstep.
Yeah.
So one team can get ahead of the other, but one person can't
Can't.
become like massively OP, which I think is a problem in LoL. I think it always has been. There are entire strategies that revolve around just getting one person kills, just feeding them, and
Well,
letting them
in
carry
ranked
the game.
play, I'm not like, in team ranked, proper 5-man ranked teams in LoL. That doesn't really bother me. But in like the other games of LoL, like if you're playing solo ranked or whatever, or duo ranked,
Yeah.
and somebody dies on your team a couple of times, you've lost the game then, and it's very irritating. So
Yeah.
for them to like mitigate that problem in Heroes of the Storm, I think is quite clever. I think it's more accessible. I think it's probably going to be classed as a
Yeah.
more accessible thing than LoL, where LoL is classed as a quite accessible thing compared to Dota 2. But I think Dota 2 and LoL are totally different things, really. This looks like something which is more...
It looks like a very different take on it to me
Yeah.
because it's going
which
to be
is what it
faster
needs
as well.
It's what
Yeah.
it needs. If they were just going to
Yeah.
basically throw out Dota 2 with friggin' Warcraft carriers, what the hell? Blizzard characters, that's what I tried to say. That was like a mixture between Warcraft and Starcraft carriers. I don't even know what happened. But if they were going to do that, then yeah, I can understand. That like if they were going to do it years ago, but like now it wouldn't wash because it's just the
Yeah.
same thing, and it's like no, they need to do something different. But to me, it did look pretty good. So I think, Mr. Kirioth, you kind of answered this earlier on, and I kind of agreed with you to some point or to some degree. But what do you think was the biggest announcement? We'll start with that. Like the biggest thing at BlizzCon this year.
I think the biggest thing was Heroes of the Storm. I think that's the thing that got the most people talking. I mean, Reaper of Souls was interesting with the stuff they've actually clarified as to what's going to be in the new expansion, and I think actually Warlords of Draenor as well. You know what? I think it was the biggest, but I think it was actually a year for big announcements, basically, because quite a lot of the stuff is kind of not revolutionary, but
Yeah,
very
needed.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's been refreshing compared to the previous BlizzCons. Like Warlords of Draenor is it's a way out of left field expansion. Let's face it. It's like, where did they come up with that? That's sparked a load of interest because they've announced so much in the way of the game itself is changing in a huge way by going back to Draenor and having it go back in time and the introduction of instant level 90s. It's like, holy crap, guys, where did you pick all this up from? Whose idea was this? I mean, well done, but where's this come from? Same with Heroes of the Storm. Everyone was expecting Blizzard All Stars to just be another MOBA, and instead they turned up and produced something that is faster and more team orientated and like more diverse than the ones that are out there. So I don't know. I'd say Heroes of the Storm, but actually I'd say Warlords of Draenor was a close second. Really.
Well, I think for me, like, I'm trying to quantify like their worth in terms of their impact, and WoW needs Warlords of Draenor, it needs it, right? But Heroes of the Storm, I think the MOBA genre needs something like that as well. And like, honestly, I think that the loser is Diablo. Like, I'm not interested in Diablo, and it looks decent, it looks fine, but out of all of the games they've got going now, I think Hearthstone is going to be a much bigger game than Diablo. I think it is. It's just going to make them more money. It's going to be a bigger game. Diablo is, I think it's at its day now, and it's like, okay, it might be okay-ish, but it isn't going to beat WoW, which is obviously their king. Okay, Heroes of the Storm, however they decide to monetize that, will be interesting, because I don't think we know, do we, just yet? Well, it must be free to play. It's got to be with something else. Hearthstone, we know that's free to play and microtransactions to buy the cards and stuff, and no doubt they'll add other stuff. So, you know, all in all, I think it is a successful BlizzCon, much better than the previous BlizzCon. And I think like it is a pretty interesting time for Blizzard, because it's not like they're not doing. You know, they seem to be slowly coming out of a period of like stagnation where they were just kind of doing the same things. To doing things a little bit different, and I think it's about time, to be honest.
Yeah, it really does feel like it kind of feels like they've been kicked up the arse a bit. Because it feels like it's gone from kind of just continuing what they've always done.
But they've been forcefully kicked up the arse by the likes of, like, I mean, you look at their esports thing with it, you know, StarCraft, that was what introduced esports to the world, right? On a global scale. StarCraft 2, I'm talking about. StarCraft 1 was very much Korean-based. StarCraft 2, that is what made it. You watched it, I watched it. I still watch it, you don't, because you've moved on to other stuff. But there are loads of people who haven't even watched StarCraft now, but watch League of Legends. In fact, you know, at BlizzCon, you've got the final of the worldwide fucking super series of the WCS on StarCraft. 110,000 viewers, maybe. You've got 4 random guys who are pro gamers streaming League of Legends on Twitch with more combined viewers. It's like, what the hell? You know, and if a LoL tournament comes on, fucking hell, it's just good night Vienna to the views. So I think they got kicked up the arse by Riot. No longer the big daddies in the big esports scene, so they've got to do something about that. And
it'd be interesting to see how Hearthstone impacts that as well.
Well, I think they've got Hearthstone. They've got, I think StarCraft is okay-ish, but I don't think that's going to particularly grow unless they do something absolutely amazing
drastic
to it. Yeah, like make it free to play, which I don't think they'll do. And then you've got Heroes of the Storm, which I guess will be more. So we're going to leave it at that anyway, guys, because we'll just talk all day about this. But what we want to know in the comments is, what do you think, or how do you think BlizzCon 2013, if you can comment as well on YouTube, how do you think BlizzCon 2013 went for Blizzard? Was it positive? Was it negative? What do you think was the biggest announcement as well? What do you think was the worst announcement? Do you think they made any mistakes? Because we'd like to see in the comments below. We will reply, again, if YouTube lets us reply, because it tells me on my own channel that I cannot reply, which is piss funny. So you can't reply to that, and I'm like, what? So, any last words, Mr. Kirioth?
Stick with it. Ignore Google+. Please comment. We like reading comments. Just battle through. We'll get there eventually.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you next time. Toodaloo.